Good morning, happy Wednesday. Welcome to Live with Liz. This is where we talk about legal marketing and business development. And today we're talking about international legal marketing. My background is international business, in case you didn't know. So this is actually the international aspect of the work that we do is the reason that I do it in some ways. Hey, if you haven't grabbed your coffee or your tea, go ahead. I'll do a little bit of an intro and talk about how excited I am about INTA. You go ahead. Cheers. My baby just started saying cheers for everything now. It's really adorable. So with this international aspect in mind, and with COVID over the last couple of years, we've rearranged how we do everything. And in some ways it's worked. This remote working has worked for us, adapting to a digital environment. But we've kind of felt it not working too, right? Everyone, I think, is excited to get back to what really can make the difference in a sale for your international legal services and that face-to-face meeting. Those international conferences where you get introductions, where you can network with people and really start to do something meaningful on a relationship level and get to know people. Now, a lot of the firms that we work with are B2B, and most of them have an international practice of some sort. Now, maybe the legal services that you provide jurisdictionally in your home country. Maybe you've got a regional presence. There are a few firms we've worked with that have a broader, more global presence, but for the most part, firms work in one locale or perhaps a small region and offer their services internationally. And there are some ways to be very successful with this, and there are some ways to really fail, and that's okay. You learn from that too, right? So don't worry about it if you failed before. There are ways to come back from that and start again. So for some of you who don't know me very well, my background is managing IP portfolios in-house in the United States. I did this for a couple of different kinds of companies, and in that experience, I often conducted RFPs and I hired counsel all over the world, worked with counsel all over the world on intellectual property and related legal matters. But one thing that the companies that I worked for had in common was that they were all multinationals. They had a presence in lots of different countries or a reason to hire counsel in different countries. And I think it's really interesting to think about before we start targeting and talking about what legal marketing internationally really looks like. Talk about how people come to hire international lawyers and what the methods are, right? Because that helps us understand who we're marketing to. And good morning, Mariana, and nice to see you bright and early. There are a couple of different ways, at least in my experience, that it's done. And there are maybe a few. Conducting RFPs is quite common. You do these projects, you send out requests for proposals, you want to get pricing and background of different law firms that could potentially help you with your legal needs in different jurisdictions. It's very common to do it that way. A very common way we would hire outside counsel when I was in-house was, hey, Liz, call Coca-Cola and see who they use in that country. Okay, boss, got it. So that happened a lot. And there were, of course, other ways too. You have these longstanding relationships that often you just go with who you know. But that referral of a friend is still very common. Then another very common way, and this is very important for understanding that who we're marketing to, is that these small to mid-sized companies don't actually do this on their own. They have their outside counsel or their local counsel in their jurisdiction take care of the international legal work too. And that means that instead of having just one client, if you're a foreign firm, you might have more than one. You might have that law firm client that's bringing you business from their corporate clients in their own jurisdiction. You might have that corporate client directly. So that helps us kind of understand who we're marketing to when it comes to selling our legal services and getting new clients in different jurisdictions. Now, obviously, we need to understand the clients, and there's a lot that can be learned from the corporate experience itself in different jurisdictions, right? So you have these crazy examples of, the Chevy Nova and marketing just in general. And you think about the messaging and you think about what's happened with these different brands in different countries. I have some recollection about Nike and some Arabic errors. And so these are the things that are important to understand just kind of on the surface. Language and culture, very important. Who are the people you're marketing to? That question again is not as simple as it might seem. Oh, it's just a law firm. Oh, it's a company. Well, it's a law firm and a company that has a culture, that has a client base, that has a need. You want to understand what these companies are facing and how they're making decisions to be able to know, one, if your legal services even match with them. If you even have the expertise or the team, the manpower required to be able to service these clients that you're going after. Because if you don't, then your efforts in legal marketing may be for naught. You don't want to target these clients that you can't possibly service and waste that marketing investment chasing something that you may never get. You want to be able to understand better who they are on a lot of different levels. So, of course, language and communication are going to be important. Understanding who they are is important first before you jump into that messaging and targeting of that particular message. Know who they are. Now, the same messaging isn't necessarily going to work, and the same cultural approaches to different people isn't going to work. So that's why when I'm looking at legal marketing of services, I want you to look internally. I want you to see what you're doing to really understand what you're offering, and then frame it in such a way that makes it ideal for you to end up meeting people. I think we're going back to this conference reality, and that actually is a good thing, because there's been a lot of disconnect with the digital realm. There's been a lot of disconnect when it comes to even sponsorship and advertising. Yes, there are some methods that have been successful, especially when it comes to targeting very specifically messaging on social media. That's easy, it's accessibly priced. Digital advertising is another really important method for reaching people you don't know on a broader scale. You can run these campaigns and they can be successful, but ultimately when you're doing real business development you want this legal marketing to lead you to business development practices that actually grow your business and get you clientele. So we want those things to go together. We want you to think about your legal marketing and the type of information that you're putting out there in terms of how that's going to convert. Where are you going to actually get the new client? And the leads coming in, you want them to be relevant so you're not wasting your time, right? Or my time or their client's time, right? So this is what's important. Now with INTA on the way, I know this is top of mind, thinking about we're getting meetings, we're excited, we're going to go to receptions maybe, we're going to connect with people again. What does this look like? And how can my legal marketing be positioned in a way in advance of these face-to-face meetings that puts me in the ideal light? Can I do a digital marketing campaign ahead of time that gets those face-to-face meetings, that accomplishes communicating our legal services in a way that resonates with the clients we want to have and with those who we know we can service? Now, when you think about these cultural aspects, I have a feeling this is probably a two-parter, right? We can't talk about everything international legal marketing in 15 minutes, or can we? No. So, let's think about it this way. If you're an expert in something, if you have a particular service you're trying to promote, if you know that there are types of clients you want to have that you don't necessarily have today, let's study them, figure out what their market is, figure out their market position, what are their pain points and challenges, and where do the legal services we offer meet that? And can we solve their problems? Can we really have a relationship with them? But how do we get them? Right? So going back to that focus on you, figuring it out, this is where you can identify those offerings that you have that are unique, your selling points that can really resonate with other people. The types of legal services you have can be explained in different ways, but you want that digital ad campaign to make sense. You want to make sure that you can put out content so that when people look you up, this is really important right now for INTA. You're getting ready to have these face-to-face meetings. You want to reach out to someone. I mean, if I don't know them, but I'm interested slightly in what they have to offer, I'm going to go Google them. I'm going to look them up online. I'll go to LinkedIn and look up their profile. If I don't find anything there, am I going to judge you? Maybe. But really, it's a missed opportunity if I don't find anything there. You could have some content that is timely, that gives me a glimpse of who you are and what you have to offer. And if you've been considerate about the targeting, trying to reach me as, say, an American, or trying to reach corporates in the US, for example, understanding how corporates operate, how we hire outside counsel, what our thought process is really important. So is your writing direct? Are you beating around the bush? Are you explaining things in a way that I don't understand? Is your language, are your language skills up to par? Is it even something that matters to me that you've written about? Is it something interesting that's going to make me click on it? All of those considerations when it comes to what kind of content you're marketing to the general public, but hopefully in a targeted way, to be able to get those meetings, to be able to convert the client, the lead into a client, rather, right? A lot of this is very specific to your individual practice. So it's not like every single approach works for every single firm and company or target client. It doesn't. It's very specific. So you really need to figure out what that looks like for you and what it looks like for the clients that you have. Now, there are some other really interesting considerations when it comes to how to sell your services internationally and marketing them just the same. Transparency and being direct with your communication. These are things that are expected in certain economies in the world and certain markets where people will respect you more for being completely transparent. What I mean by that, a lot of law firms, rather, in different areas, try and be protective of their information. They don't necessarily want you to reach out and connect with people on an individual level. Sometimes people or companies are hiding who they are. And there is a cultural reaction to marketing that way. So if you put up some digital advertising campaigns and I don't really get a sense of who you are when you're offering your legal services, it may not even lead to a meeting later. It may not lead to anything at all because there's been a cultural miss. And those are the kinds of considerations that we make when we decide what kind of method we're going to use to reach a particular audience and what the messaging should be in parallel with that method, right? So consider your website, consider your digital marketing opportunities, whether you're taking out ads on browsers or whether you're doing something that's more meaningful in terms of substantive content, maybe a sponsored article or a guide that you're putting out or content that your firm is developing on its own that you then use to market to the masses or specifically to different jurisdictions. Now, when we get into the nitty gritty of what these different jurisdictions are like, I think we all have to use our own experiences to understand the different cultures better, but it's not the same entering a new country like Japan or China as entering the United States. And even countries where they share the language may have very different expectations on the corporate side. They may have different operations, and there are things that just may not be easily translatable and understood, especially in terms of the legal services that you provide. And maybe it's as simple as starting with that. So there may be legal proceedings, terminology, and things that are done in different jurisdictions that, for example, are just not done in the United States, or things that are done here that we can't accomplish in other places. And those are not easily communicated, and that can lead to a lot of problems when you're trying to market your services. So these are the kinds of considerations that we're talking about when we say, okay, think about the market and think about who you're marketing to. So if you're trying to reach a Japanese audience, you're not going to use the same channel. You're not going to use the same messaging. It's going to look different for a Japanese audience and for an American audience. And that may be difficult for a third-party country that is receiving work from these different countries. So if you're in a place where you're selling legal services to multinationals because you've got this incoming work, it's something that you really have to grapple with. You have to spend some time, invest some time in getting to really understand these different markets. And then again, look internally. And there are all sorts of different aspects of looking internally that we would consider aside from just, oh, what legal services do we offer and what content? I mean, even something as simple as pricing. Is your pricing the same from one country to the next? And how would different audiences feel about that if they knew? Do you market with that sort of thing in mind? Oh, we have accessible pricing, come to us. What does that look like? So that's just one example of things that can be taken in a different light because of cultural experience and expectations. And so multinationals deal with this every day when they think about the behavior of their clientele and how to sell to them. And it's not something that the legal industry is spared. We also have to think about these things too. If you have questions about marketing internationally, and we will have another live with Liz that probably goes more in depth into a particular country or region, then please send us a message, solutions@firmforward.com. We're always happy to answer your one-off questions when we can. And yeah, we love to hear from you. And thank you for joining us on Live with Liz. Hope to see you next Wednesday, 9 a.m. Houston. Take care, everybody.